Good morning. I'm Pastor Larry Bush. I am the pastor of Congregational Care here at Forest Park Covenant Church. If you're wondering, we're at 3815 Henry Street here in Muskegon. We are so glad that you took a moment to join this in just a few moments of reflection. Today is March 19th. If you're interested, David Livingstone, one of the greatest missionaries of all time, had a burden and a passion for Christ to spread the message of the gospel to those who perhaps had never heard. His desire and passion and burden was to go to China. Due to circumstances beyond his control, he never got there, but instead he ended up in the continent of Africa, brought the gospel of Jesus Christ to the continent of Africa, and there he lived for 60 years. He died at the age of 60 in 1873 after having been perhaps the pioneer in what we would call foreign missions. What has that got to do with us today? Well, many of you give faithfully hundreds and thousands of dollars to mission work around the world, and many folks here at Forest Park do as well. But very few of us really know our missionaries. I would encourage you today, for lack of something else to do while we are held in quarantine, so to speak, write a letter to a missionary. Get their address. Send them a small gift. Oh, it doesn't have to be money. It can be just an encouraging word, a positive postcard, something to let them know that they are not forgotten and they are supported by your prayers. Well, today we are in a state of unrest. Our country is in dire need of encouragement. People are frightened, as well they should be. This is a serious disease, not to be taken lightly. As we go through our life, I'm reminded of something that Pastor Ken said in one of his early messages in our series called Pathways. And that statement was taken from the book of Hebrews, when Moses told the Israelites, "Be still and know that I am the Lord." In that passage, the Israelites had left Egypt just about this time of year, in fact, and they had gotten to the Red Sea, and here, lo and behold, came the Egyptians after them with the full intent to capture, perhaps murder, and to take back all of the rolling stock and the wealth that the Israelites had left Egypt with. They were beside themselves with fear. They couldn't go ahead. The Red Sea was in front of them. They couldn't go back. The armies were approaching. Moses, hearing from God and talking to God, and by the way, a picture of those who would lead us today, the leaders, men of God, who must make decisions and choices. I ask that you would pray for them rather than murmur about them. They turned to Moses, and he said to them, as God had spoken to him, God told Moses, "Today the world will know I am God." Moses turned to his people. With raised staff, he said, "Be still and know that I am God." And I would ask you today simply to take confidence in that simple truth. He's in control. Later in the New Testament, we have a lot of encouraging words. For instance, in 1 Peter, the Apostle Peter told the disciples that they should cast all of their cares, of which were many. As we now know, many of them, all of them, were martyred for the cause of Christ. He said, cast all your cares upon him, because he, God, cares for you. We want you to know here at Forest Park, God cares for you. There were some other reminders. In Philippians chapter 4, perhaps the most famous of all of those care verses, he says, "Don't worry about anything, but in everything with prayer and supplications, let your request be made known to God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, will keep your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus." It's so important to us to remember He is still God, the same God who brought the Israelites from insurmountable odds into victory on the other side of the Red Sea, he still gives us no reason to worry. And then he tells us in Galatians that if we know a brother who is struggling or perhaps is taken in sin, we are to care for them. We are to carry our brother's burdens, which may even be the consequence of a ill-timed trip to Meyer, or maybe the consequence of a wrong choice. We are to carry their burdens and bring them to a relationship. If you are following the pathways, today's verse is from Romans chapter 12. I beg you, brethren, by the mercies of God, to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. It may mean we give up something that we can't keep to get something we can't lose. I want you to know today that you are loved, prayed for, and concerned. We as a staff are praying for you and asking God's richest blessing upon you and our community as we seek to do God's will in difficult times. God bless. Have a great day.